Alright guys, hello, welcome to my 300th video, and it is currently April 21st of 2015, and I'm finally getting around to my 2013 Game of the Year list. Woo! Yay! Welcome. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, I had the first three, I'll show you. I have this, 10-page script written out for what I wanted to say. I've had this for 2 years now, or a year and a half now, and I had the first three of them all recorded and animated and everything, and then the drive died again. So I'm real fucking tired of that. But doesn't matter, because we're here now. And instead, I've just formed an outline, basically, the high points of this, and I'm just going to walk through it and tell you guys, because it's been a year and a half already, and it's already too late. So I figure, you know, if you're going to have this as sort of like a game backlog of games you want to go back to, you might as well have it in this way. So we'll just start right off at number 10. I had Year Walk on the iOS. Now, Year Walk is super interesting because, you know, I was looking back at this list and it seems like, well, first of all, the order might have changed over time, but I'm not changing it from how I had it originally. That's how I felt at the time, so that's how it should be. But some of these games I've kept playing and some of them I haven't. And it's really interesting how much has changed since 2013, where like iOS and Android are really serious platforms now that a lot of games are developed more and a lot of money is made on. But in 2013, there were like no games on iOS, no good ones. You know, there are all these shitty ones, the Clash of Clans and the Candy Crush that everyone plays and still plays now. But you know, there weren't any real like, you know, high profile good games that you could go and say, hey, you have an iOS device, why don't you go check this game out? It's really good. You know, I might go like, hey, you have an iOS device, do you play Candy Crush? Okay, right. But nowadays there's so many of them, and Year Walk is one of the first ones that I would really just say, oh my god, you have to play this game. So it was made by a company called Sumogo, and they made 2 games that year that were really good. But Year Walk's the one I chose because I really felt like it did so well being on the iOS interface, and you know, it was just this gorgeous, really stylized game, and it used the iOS touch really, really well. And on top of that, it was just a really good horror game and puzzle game. You know, it made me scared. I feel like every horror game since Amnesia has done this no combat, atmospheric pressure, jump scare stuff to make tension. But like Year Walk does all of those things, but does them all so well. It's just amazing. And it had me just scared to look up from the iPhone screen. So I was very, very happy with Year Walk. I definitely thought it deserved to be on my top 10 list. You know, as an iOS game, it's the only one on here, but I really thought it was really good. So yeah, it was organic, it was effective. There's a lot of little stuff hidden that you could find, and it used things like the shake and the gyroscope and stuff that was just really impressive. And I'll go on to number 9. So number 9, I had Tearaway on the PS Vita. And the Vita, first of all, I think is really kind of an underrated piece of hardware. You know, it's got 2 analog sticks, like the 3DS doesn't. I mean, the new one kind of does, but it's got a little nubbin thing. And it's got 2 touchscreens. The one on the back, the entire back is a touchscreen. It's really cool. If other games would use it, it'd be good. But the problem has just been that there's no good games out on Vita. Nobody wants to make it because not enough people bought the Vita, so they won't make enough money to recoup their cost. And so Tearaway was just like a big surprise that kind of came out of nowhere for me. But it was just amazing because it like Year Walk, it used every part of the Vita really well. You use all the analog sticks, all of the touch screens, the camera on the front and back, you use both of them for the game. It's just super cool, and it's made from Media Molecule, who made Little Big Planet, so if you ever played that, you kind of know their style. They have this really, really, you know, happy, charming, whimsical world that they made, and it's all made of cut paper, and it's just this beautiful, cute little game that I played for hours and hours. It was so good, and I wish more people had Vitas so they would make more things like this. But I just absolutely love Tearaway. You know, you could use every touchscreen. You know, when you poked your hand in the touchscreen on the back, it would come up in the game. Or like, you know, when you held it in front of you, the camera would see your face, and your face would show up in the game as a sun in the game, like in Teletubbies, like you're like a god. It's just really, really good. And you know, on top of that, the previous games, Little Big Planet games, you know, they were known for being like, oh yeah, they're really cute, they're really cool ideas, but they weren't really well made. You know, like the platforming wasn't very good and all that stuff. But the platforming in this game is good. Like, it totally works. It's a good game, and you touch it just like an iOS game, and it's just a really, really good game. I definitely recommend it. It gives you a little bit of freedom that a lot of these kinds of platforming games don't, and it lets you. There's a lot of other cool like ancillary stuff in the game. Like you can get the designs that are in the game. You can get them out and make them out of construction paper. And I really almost did that for a lot of. I think I'm still going to make a squirrel because they're awesome. But yeah, just these sort of cutesy games. They have a sense of wonder that I don't think a lot of these bigger games have, and I really enjoy it, and it just makes me happy to play. So definitely recommend it if you have a Vita. Strongly urge you to get one. If you don't have a Vita and you see one on sale, this is not the first time Vita's going to show up on this list, and it wouldn't be the last. I've put hundreds of hours into my Vita. There's some really, really good games out for it, and I'm going to take my glasses off. They're bothering me. I got new glasses, but I lost them, so I don't know where the heck they are. They're somewhere in this house. But yeah, definitely check out Tearaway. It's just a really, really, really good game, and it was a surprise. But let's move on to number 8. So number 8 was Saints Row 4 for the PC. And I'm telling the platform that I played them on. There are obviously a lot of these games are on several platforms, like Saints Row 4. But part of the Saints Row 4 thing for me was that when THQ died, I was really worried about it, because Saints Row the Third was my game of the year of 2011. Like, I put it above Skyrim. It was just probably the best game I've ever played. It's so fun, and it's so dumb, and I love the dumb. I just watched Furious 7 over the weekend with my little brother. I watched all of the Fast and Furious movies in the last week leading up to it. I just love stupid things like that are like made for the fun of it. And yeah, Saints Row 4 was, Saints Row 4 actually started out as DLC for Saints Row 3. They had this idea, and they're like, no, let's make it bigger and bigger and bigger, until eventually it just became a full game. And I loved almost every part of it. They improved on just about everything in the third game, which, if you play the third game, is very difficult to imagine. But you start the game, and you're the president of the United States, of course, and you're under attack. The world is under attack by an evil alien emperor, so you have to go into the video game matrix and fight him. And along the way, you build up a crew, a team of people. It's a lot like Fast and Furious. It's great. It's just great. And it's kind of interesting, because like, for a game that like really prides itself on a stupid story and like just like loving stupid things, it's actually got like a shocking amount of actual storytelling and some really good like character interactions and character development, and it's just really, really funny. And on top of that, the voice acting is just really great. Like you go in and so one of the dumb things about it is you can pick your like male or female character. You like pick one of the voices. There's like 5 male and 5 female voices, and you can use like a female voice for a male character. It doesn't matter. Like, they don't give a shit. But then the bottom, it's like the male 1, male 2, male 3, male 4, male 5, and the female one at the bottom is just Nolan North. And it's just Nolan North. And so, of course, I played as Nolan North the whole time. And so, yeah, my guy was just Nolan North was the leading character. And Troy Baker has one of the roles, too, one of the voices. But, I mean, I was going to play Nolan North, heck. And of course, they also had Keith David in the game. He plays a big role in the game. He plays Keith David. It's wonderful. It's just a really, really good Saints Row game. If you ever played GTA, and you haven't played Saints Row and you think GTA is a little too serial, play Saints Row, because it's just the dumb version of GTA, and I fucking love it. One of the things, though, that I sort of have to mention is you kind of don't ever drive anymore. There's a few missions that require it, but pretty early on in the game, they give you superpowers, and you can just, like, fly. Or you can jump really high and then glide. You can fly, basically. So there's not really a need to drive almost ever. And the strange thing is, like, I drove a few times because I enjoy driving in those games. And the driving is still really good. Like, the driving is better than it was in the third, and it's still there, and you can still do it. You just never really want to, because you can fly. Like, why would you ever want to do that? I mean, yeah, like, because you keep uploading your powers, and eventually you can just fly over everyone, and then you dive bomb onto the ground, and when you hit the ground, it makes a nuclear explosion. So why wouldn't you do that, right? So, I don't know. That's kind of like small complaint, also not really a complaint I have with the game. The soundtrack is great. If you played the third game, the soundtrack was really good for that game, and they had some really good moments involving music and licensed music. And probably the best moment was when Kanye West Power played when he jumped out of the helicopter, and that was probably my favorite mission in the game. And I didn't think there were any moments in this game that were that strong, but there were definitely a lot of really good moments, and you'll like it. If you like that kind of use of licensed music in your game. And yeah, Saints Row is just so fun. It's what you want a game to be. It's a video game. It's a video game video game. I meant to say. Sorry. It's just I can't even describe. You just have to play Saints Row. If you haven't played it, I strongly recommend it. It's on sale all the time. Definitely, you don't even have to play the first two. They're not useful. There's some like throwbacks to it in the fourth one, but you don't have to play them. The third one, you definitely have to play if you're a human being and you like fun, because that's like the best most ridiculous game ever. And the fourth one is just like a continuation of it. It's made some changes, but it's basically the same core game, and I absolutely loved it. It's not my number one this time, but it was definitely good. And there was a lot of good games that came out in 2013. I enjoyed a lot of them. But let's go on to the next one. So number 7 on my list is Pokemon X and Y for the 3DS. Of course, if you know me, I love Pokemon. I've always loved Pokemon since the first ones came out. I played Red version for God knows how many hundreds of hours. Actually, my first project on YouTube was a playthrough of Pokemon Platinum, which I never played at the time. Was it Platinum? It might have been Crystal. I think it was Crystal, yeah. And it just, a hard drive died, and I lost that save and all my videos for it. So, you can sense a trend here. Don't trust your hard drives. They die on you. I had an SSD die a few weeks ago. It was the most annoying thing ever. But I mean, Pokemon is Pokemon. It's really cute. It's also really deep if you want to get really into it, and just anyone and everybody can play it. So it's just a really good game. Pokemon X and Y. I remember when it came out. It was the first one that had 3D, and I think that was one of the big things. Nintendo really hadn't changed much in the last few games, and so it was really good to see them pull out some new things. It had 3D, like I said. They gave fans a lot of things we've been asking for a long time, like customization of your character, and an in-game chat function that's been useful, and those carried over to the new ones. I got Alpha Sapphire for this new gen, and so I really thought those are some smart changes they made in X and Y, and really dragged me back into the series. Some other things they changed. They sort of gave you that XP share at the beginning that sort of made the game really easy, because you could, it made the game a lot easier and more palatable for new players. They basically took grinding out of the game. But they also added some things that lets you grind things like EVs. And so like the higher levels of the game also benefited from some of the changes they made. So I really liked a lot of the changes they made in X and Y, and I think it definitely deserved a spot in my top 10. There were a lot of good 3DS games that year, but X and Y was great. It really, it dragged me back in. I got Y because I like that dragon that looked like a Y. It was pretty sick. And I barely even touched the cosmetic stuff, but I know a lot of friends who put hours and hours into buying clothes and changing their hairstyles, and because they're weird. But I mean, it's there for you, and that game really made me excited about the future Pokemon. I'm glad I played it, and now that I have Alpha Sapphire, I played that, and you get to ride around on a dragon, so that's pretty sick. I'm just kind of curious to see what comes next, but definitely that X and Y was a good game. If you haven't played it, you should check it out. I mean, it's Pokemon. It's Pokemon as Pokemon. Like, you'll get what you want if you like Pokemon. And if you haven't ever played Pokemon before, it's a pretty good place to start. It definitely makes it easier for new players. But let's go on to number 6. Number 6 on my list for that year was Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and I did not see this coming at all. If you played the first Assassin's Creed, I had never played it on console, and so I tried playing it, and I tried to like it on PC, but the port was just so bad, like I couldn't play it. I quit after a while. And then the next one, I never interacted with 2 really, and then Assassin's Creed 3 was just fucking awful. It was so bad. And so I was just like, 4 is going to be some of this, like, just the exact same thing as 3, but with some Pirates of the Caribbean shit thrown in, and I'm just not interested. But I happened to get it for free when I bought a video card, and so I was like, what the hell, it's free, I might as well try it. And I was so surprised. It was like the biggest shock I've ever had. Like, I don't know, I mean, Ubisoft has a billion teams work on every game, but they clearly had their A team on this game, because it was just so good. It's this giant world that you could sail around, and had tons of stuff to explore, and tons of collectibles, and tons of missions, and it was just hours and hours and hours of entertainment. I remember I played it over the break at home, and I would hang out with my family all day, and then at nighttime everyone would go to sleep. I'd go into my room and I'd play Assassin's Creed till like 5 or 6 a.m. like every day for a week and a half. It was just so incredibly fun, and I didn't ever think it would be, but I mean, I think one of the big things that really helped it was it dropped a lot of the Assassin's Creediness that went on. You played this pirate called Edward Kenway, and he, like, for most of the game you kind of just don't really care about Templars and Assassins and all that crap. You just explore the world and do stuff that has to do with your character, and I think that was really smart, because people were getting real tired of those characters and that entire plot thing, because they kept pulling dumb shit like making George Washington a Templar, I think, in the third one, or just a bunch of stupid stuff, and nobody wanted that anymore. So definitely getting away from that a little bit for most of the game was good. I didn't really like I didn't like all of the mission types. I didn't like all of the collectible types, but there was so much stuff to do. Like I didn't 100% the game, but I spent a lot of time getting most of the stuff in the game, and I enjoyed most of it. They streamlined the combat a lot. Since this game, I've actually gone back and played a little bit of Revelations, and even in that small jump of 2 games, they streamlined and made the combat a lot more fun and interesting. Let's see what else about the game. Man, I can't, like, it still blows my mind when I think about it, that, like, Assassin's Creed in my mind was this franchise that was just terrible on PC. Maybe if I got a console, I'd play it, but, like, it's just awful. And then this one came out, and I was like, what the heck have I missed out? It's so good. This game was just so much fun. One big thing that they did was, I remember in 3, they added the ship combat stuff, and everyone was like, I mean, it's okay, but the game sucks. But in this one, like, I spent a ton of time playing with my ship. I went and, I went and shot bunch of ships with my cannons, and they blew up, and then I stole their shit because I'm a pirate, god damn it. But I upgraded that thing to have like a stupid number of cannons that go out and fight ships that were way bigger than me, and I had a whole fleet of ships that I captured that would go out and make me money and do stuff while I was it's sort of a background mechanic. It's kind of a management. If you ever played one of those like those handheld games, the iOS games where you're basically just clicking numbers, it's kind of like that, but I don't know. I found it more interesting, and there's a real time element of it if you get into a fight. And yeah, I just spent a ton of time on my boats. I don't know why it was so compelling, but I definitely thought it was. But yeah, it's got something for everybody. Definitely, if you haven't played that game, I would really recommend it. It's been on sale a few times. I haven't played the DLC for it, and I keep meaning to get it, but I just never see it when it's on sale, and I can't justify buying it and have a billion other games I should play. But definitely Assassin's Creed 4. Black Flag was a really good, really fun game. I didn't expect it to be, but yeah, it surprised the shit out of me, and I'd recommend it. Anyway, let's go on to the top half of my list. So number 5 was The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds on 3DS, and that was just, I mean, it wasn't a surprise, right? Nintendo said they're making a Link to the Past, and I was like, I'm there. And if you're anywhere close to like how old I am, or if you're around my age, maybe probably might lean older than I am, you probably played A Link to the Past in some form. It's come out on a bunch of different platforms, but they never really changed the game, and that's for good reason, because A Link to the Past is seriously probably one of the best games ever made, and I played it recently on Virtual Console. I think I can't remember when the last time I played it was, but like I don't know, I played one of the newer renditions of it, and it's like, yeah, this holds up. Yeah, this is still fun. I mean, like the mechanics are outdated, and the game is, it's old, but it definitely still holds up. You can still play it right now and be good. And so I thought they were never going to touch it again. Like that thing was just going to be a standalone, like, oh, you remember A Link to the Past? Yeah, that was Zelda. Yeah. See, we got this new Zelda game, and if you like Link to the Past, I mean, it's still Zelda, so like if you like that, you might like this. But no, they actually made a sequel. And something that you should definitely know is, it's called A Link to the Past. I mean, the first one's called A Link to the Past, and this one is called A Link Between Worlds, so you might think it's something like the HD Wind Waker remix, or Majora's Mask was to Ocarina of Time, where it's like kind of a sequel but not really, or just like a remake. But no, it's actually a straight up sequel. And in the original Japanese, A Link to the Past was called Triforce of the Gods, and this game in the Japanese is just straight up Triforce of the Gods 2. Like it's a straight sequel. And I think one of the things that you really need to note about it is that Nintendo finally that year, not this year, it was this year then, like they finally decided to sort of come out of their shell and be in the 21st century. Nintendo's like Rockstar, they just kind of live in their own little world and pretend no other game developers exist. And the problem with that is like Animal Crossing in 2013, it didn't make this list because it had just some really outdated mechanics that they could have fixed easily, but they're just like, no, we're Nintendo, we're not doing what you guys want because we're Nintendo, and we can, and you'll buy it anyway. And to be fair, I did buy it anyways, but there was a lot of things I probably should have updated and switched and made streamlined a little bit to make it easier to play. And Zelda did that. Zelda was just, they took things that were sort of outdated, outmoded, things that gaming culture has sort of moved away from, and they're like, okay, fine, yeah, we'll make Zelda, but in that context. And it was just really good. It really modernized Zelda. Like for one thing, you don't run out of arrows. You have a mana bar, so like all of your special things like bombs and arrows and stuff, they go off your mana bar and it recharges. And you can also get things to recharge it faster. You get little drops to recharge it faster. And see, what else is it? It's more open world. if you've ever played a Zelda 2D Zelda game, they gauge your progress by like, oh, you don't have this item, so you can't go to this dungeon yet. In this one, you just get almost all of the items at the beginning. You rent them, and they're really cheap to rent, and you can just go in whatever fucking dungeon you want at any time. And it's just these little changes that make it modernized, that really brought this one to life. I thought this Zelda was, I'd say, probably top 3 Zeldas I've ever played, and I've played a lot of the Zelda games. I just got Wind Waker for the Wii U, so I'll probably play that over my break after I graduate in a couple weeks. But definitely this was one of my top Zeldas, and it's not just, you know, it's not just like the modernization, but it's the little things too. You know, they just made a really good looking 3DS game. It's the best 3DS like 3D implementation I've seen on any 3DS game, and they had really good music. It looked really good, and like the little things like when you're so if you're listening to the music and then you do one of the mechanics is you enter these cracks in the world to go into the well, what you do is you turn 2D, right, on the wall, and then if you go along a crack, you can go into the dark world. And so if you're listening to the music and you turn 2D, the music changes to be like a tinny version of the same music you're listening to, just like that, seamlessly. And it's just a really good touch, right? Like things like that make the environment pop out, that make you fall in love with the game. It's just a really good quality game, like Game of the Year quality game, and you should definitely check it out if you haven't played it. It's on 3DS. 3DS has a billion good games. If you don't have a 3DS, it's a good time to get one. The new one just came out this year, and yeah, definitely Link Between Worlds, amazing game. But let's move on to number 4, Spelunky, and this came out. I played it on PS Vita and PC and PS3, but I played it on PC first, and this was kind of a cheat because Spelunky technically came out in 2012. But 2013 it came out on those other 3 platforms. They added so much to the game that it was basically like a brand new game, and so I was very pleased with it. I didn't play with it until then, and it's like the dark horse in my list. But the funny thing is, Spelunky is probably like in my top 10 games of all time after I've played it now, and I've played it a bunch of times since. But it's just, if you look at it from a very basic level, it's just a really hard roguelike platformer. It's got really tight controls, and you try to get as much gold as you can, and you try to make it to the end. And that's it. And if that's all you know, and you only play a few minutes of it, and you're just like, okay, well, this is hard, I'm not into it, see ya. You are, like, depriving yourself of 99% of the actual game. Like, it is very hard. On my first 500 attempts, I beat it twice. So that tells you something about it. But, like, Spelunky is just, it's rotten with these secret items and hidden side quests and alternate paths that you can take that always show up, but at a different spot every time because it's randomized. And it's super deep. It's super interesting. And for months and months, Spelunky, you could always go on Twitch and find people playing Spelunky. And there would just be a ton of streamers, and they'd get thousands of people watching them play because all these people play Spelunky, and they know, like, oh, these people are really good at clicking buttons. And also, this world is completely random. And it's just such a good game. And one thing about Spelunky is it's a lot of developers say that it's their favorite game because the controls are just perfect. Like, it's super, super tight. And the gameplay is really good, but it's also the same every time. Like, if you see this one enemy, it behaves the same way every time. So every time you die and every mistake you make, you know it. It's your own fault, and you know exactly how you could have avoided it and how you should do better next time. So every time you play, chances are you're going to die, but you're going to get better at the game. If you've played Binding of Isaac, it's kind of like the same concept. They're really similar games, Binding of Isaac and this game. But I like this game a lot better than Binding of Isaac. A lot of people I know like Binding of Isaac better. It's kind of a taste thing. But the thing about Spelunky is it like the game is really you against like your hubris. Like, you get through the first 5 levels without taking any damage, and you're like, oh, I'm good, and you go, and just the second you get careless, an enemy comes at you and you instantly die. And that's the second you get lazy, the second you get, careless, the second you look away from the screen for a second, you're just gonna die. And the mechanics are so tight that it's just like, it's actually impossible to master the game. Like, nobody. I mean, I watched a lot of streams of Spelunky. I've watched so many hours of Bananasaurus Rex. He was the first Twitch streamer I actually subscribed to. But nobody wins every time they play, or accomplishes their goal every time they play. So people keep coming up with new challenges to do, and they keep doing them, but nobody has mastered the game. A lot of people are very good at the game, but nobody's mastered it. And I kept playing it since then on occasion. It's just a really fun game. I might stream it sometime soon, and you'll see how bad my mechanics have gotten. See how much my muscle memory remembers. It'll be really bad. I'll die so fast. But it's just seriously, it's one of my probably top 10 games of all time, just because it's so well made and it's so clean and precise. And you know exactly how you died. And I mean, another thing about it that doesn't really factor into like the game of the year contention stuff, but just like something you should know about it is it's one of those like heartwarming success stories in gaming. There's not a lot of them, but the guy who made it, Derek Yu, he made it as a Flash game. You can go play the Flash game for free online. It's I don't know what the website is, but just search Spelunky in Google. And a bunch of people really loved it, and it caught the attention of Jonathan Blow, who you might know from, he made Braid. He's in Indie Game the Movie, if you ever watched that movie. He's one of those like really big intellectual indie developers who could easily get a job at a big developer, but he likes being indie. He's making The Witness now, and it seems like it's coming out soon. I'm really excited for that game. But Jonathan Blow saw it, and he was like, oh my god, I love this game. And so he got Derek Yu in touch with his contacts at Microsoft, and they were like, yeah, let's make it, let's do it. And they got it to make on their platform. They sold it, it made a decent amount of money, so he was able to sell it on more platforms. Like, it's just one of those really nice stories of this guy made this thing that was really good, and everyone loved it, and it came out, and he's very financially successful off of it, and that's just great. It's just all around a great game. Most people, I'm sure, haven't played it, and I would definitely recommend you go try it. And stick with it. If you just play it for 10 minutes, you go, God damn it, this is too hard. I'm not playing this anymore, and I don't get it. Yeah, you don't get it because you only played it for 10 minutes. You really have to put some time into it, and there's a little bit of reading involved, or maybe watching people who know what they're doing and try to see what the real goals of the game are, because the real goal of the game isn't to get as much gold as you can and beat the enemy. That's just sort of the outside. But if you actually go and do a little research and look into it, this game is super deep and super interesting and super fun. So definitely recommend Spelunky. And the next game I kind of feel the same way about is number 3 is Fire Emblem Awakening for the 3DS. And I really thought 2013 was just like a phenomenal year for handheld stuff. I mean, you had the iOS game I mentioned before. There are a few other iOS games that came out that year. They're really good. You had a few Vita games that were really good. And then you had a bunch of 3DS games. I mean, you had Pokemon, you had Animal Crossing, you had the new Zelda, you had Luigi's Mansion. You had a ton of games that came out for handheld devices. But the best one, by far, was Fire Emblem Awakening. In fact, it's the best 3DS game ever. I've played a lot of 3DS games. I own a lot of 3DS games. That thing right there, a lot of that is 3DS cases. But Fire Emblem is seriously the best game I've ever played on a handheld device. And I played a lot of Fire Emblem as a kid, but none of them were anywhere near as good or as complete as this one. And that'll probably be a contentious claim, but I really think this is the best Fire Emblem I've ever played. And I mean, a slight bit of bias, maybe. I didn't make a video for this, but my 2012 game of the year was XCOM Enemy Unknown. I really love strategy games like that, and Fire Emblem kind of scratches the same itch for me. It was a while between Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within, and someone recommended this Fire Emblem, and I was like, I haven't played that franchise in a while. I really like intelligent systems games like Advanced Wars, so why not? I'll try it. And yeah, I played that game for so long, and even after Enemy Within came in, I played through that once, and I was like, okay, back to Fire Emblem. I have played so much Fire Emblem before and since writing this list, and in fact, if I go back and look at it, like, Fire Emblem should jump to number 1. Maybe. I haven't decided. I mean, it's too late now, because I'm making the video, and I'm making it off of the list I made before, but honestly, Fire Emblem might be the best game that came out in 2013. And so let's talk about the game a little bit. I'm just in here gushing about it, but... So part of the thing about Fire Emblem, if you played XCOM, you know that sort of it's kind of roguelike-y, right? Like when your characters die, they die for good, and you have to train up another character. If you're playing Iron Man like a human adult, and in Fire Emblem, if you play, the actual mode that people play, the one where your people die for good, that same thing happens, and so you get to really care about your characters. But in XCOM, you kind of only cared about them because of their rank, and they got better as you used them, so you got attached to them, and you can name them, and that was about it. But in this one, the characters are integral to the story. Different things happen depending on who's alive and who's not, who you have with you. You are actually a character in the game. You're the tactician character. And, so you're the tactician, but you're also in the game as one of the characters. And you can have your people marry each other. They'll have kids, and those kids will grow up and be part of your group. And it's just such a good, well-made game. and the strategy aspect is just really, really good. You know, if you ever played Advanced Wars, it's those same guys. They're really good at making that game, and they just made a really, really good strategy game, and it's Fire Emblem Awakening. Like, I can't recommend it enough. Trying to think. I mean, I played every storyline in the game. I played every DLC. I bought and played every DLC. I grinded all of my favorite characters as high as the game would let me, and sometimes I redid the stats and grinded them up again just to get the best the best abilities and power-ups and stuff. I've shown this game to a ton of people. I've made people play it. I've never met anyone who played the game and did not fall in love with it. It is just seriously the best 3DS game. In fact, I'm sure if I went and looked up like the top 3DS games and I took an average of all of the top 10 lists that I see or whatever, Fire Emblem will probably be at the top of most, if not all of them. It's just a really, really, really good game, and I definitely think you should check it out. So that was my number 3 for that year. Number 2 and 1 are probably not going to surprise anyone. Maybe the order will, but there were a couple of really good big games that came out in 2013. And so number 2 was The Last of Us for PlayStation 3. And that was another big surprise for me because it did something that I did not think was possible anymore. It got me interested in a zombie game. Like, so many fucking zombie games, and most of them were terrible. But, you know, I've always sort of liked Naughty Dog games from afar. I never had a Sony device until 2013. So I never had any PlayStations or Vita or anything. But I bought a Vita and a PS3 that year because PlayStation Plus was just such a good deal. So yeah, I sort of just took a passing fancy. I was like, okay, yeah, when I played them at my friends' houses, those are cool games, but I never really knew much about them. And this game, it was highly recommended. I got it on eBay when I was buying the Metal Gear Solid pack, and somebody was selling this game and a Killzone game together, and it was at a really good price. So I was like, yeah, I'll get them all. I'll try it. Last of Us is supposed to be good. I've heard a lot about it. But oh my god, I started playing it, and then I played it the afternoon of one day and then all day the second day, and I finished it in those 2 sittings. I could not put it down. It was just so good. And, you know, it's not really a horror game, but they say horror is 90 or 80% sound or something like that. And it's not really like a traditional horror game. It's a story adventure movie, really. But like, the music and the sound design of this game is just so good. And I have the soundtrack for it on my phone. I listen to it regularly. It's just such great mixing and such great music for it. And the voice acting is really good too. I mean, Troy Baker is your lead. You can't go wrong with Troy Baker. He's so good. And he's a Southern person, so you probably haven't heard Troy Baker in a Southern accent if you haven't played this game. And his co-star is Ashley Johnson. She plays the best female character I've ever played in a video game. Her name is Ellie. And I mean, you just have to play the game. They do an amazing job of voice acting. Nolan North, of course, is in this game too, because Naughty Dog can't make a game without him, and he sort of makes a later appearance in the game. But I think probably the most amazing thing is how much attention to detail Naughty Dog had when they made the game. You know, like, you'll just go into a random side room and it'll have a story in it. A lot of people aren't like me, so if you've ever seen me play Diablo or anything, I have to go into every corner of every map and find every little thing. A lot of people aren't like me, and if they don't do that, they will miss a lot of the stuff that developers have put in here. On the walls, there's tons of posters and stuff that are all different in every room. Every room you go into has its own little story that, if you're careful about, you can sort of pick out things that aren't part of the main storyline. And they just put so much detail in it. And on top of that, it just looks so good. I mean, if you just took a screenshot of it and you showed it to me, I would not believe that it was run on a 10-year-old machine at the time. The PS3 is just like this 10-year-old potato hunk of garbage, and somehow it's running this thing at 1080p. Of course, when you're actually playing it, you'll definitely see, you'll see some of the aging, and there's some performance issues because, once again, it's running on a PS3. But if you told me it was a PC game running, if it was just a AAA PC game running, I would have believed you. It looks really, really good. And then the story itself is just really, really well written. It's got the best opening of any game I've ever seen. Like a Scorsese level opening sequence. And just tugs at your heartstrings the whole time. There's a ton of emotion and love put into the crafting of the story, and it's very, very good. There are a few caveats I have to say. For one, the combat, the combat's kind of muddy. It's kind of imprecise. I mean, it's a PS3 third-person shooter, and sometimes it's a little bit frustrating to play the game. But that being said, if you're playing the game for the combat, you're kind of doing it wrong. Like, the game is not about the combat; it's about the story and the characters, and going through this adventure with them, and going through like sort of the emotional upheaval that they do. Another complaint is that like you don't get much choice of what happens. Like I said before, it's basically a movie. Like, I always say my favorite zombie movie is The Last of Us, because I mean, that's a design choice, right? I'm not going to fault them for that, but some people complain about that a lot, because at the end, there's a really big emotional choice that you kind of don't have any say in. You just see what it goes, and that's fine, right? The creators had the story they wanted to tell, and we were just there for the ride, so, you know, that's a design choice. I think it was a good one. I think it was a great movie, and a decent game. A good game, but like a decent 12-hour movie. and I didn't even touch the multiplayer. I heard that was good, but I'm not into playing third-person shooter multiplayer on the PS3. I can't do it. And especially the internet down here is so bad. I just get frustrated all the time. But yeah, this game is this is what you would describe as a masterpiece. A lot of people gave this game of the year. I put it at a solid second. I think my game of the year is better, in my opinion, but it's definitely an amazing game. It's one that if you play it, you won't forget it. It's got, like I said, the best opener of any game I've ever seen, and it's got this really chilling conclusion that you will never forget when you play it. And yeah, this game is gonna last a lot longer than the last generation, as you saw. Like, it's already come out on PS4 again because so many people loved it, and it's just a game you really have to see for yourself. So if you have a PS4 and you haven't played this game, I would definitely recommend you check it out. If you have a PS3, I would almost go as far as to say it's worth having a PS3 just to play this game. I would say that for the Vita about Persona 4 Golden. If you like, Persona 4 Golden was worth $150 for the Vita and the game. The PS3 is so cheap now, it might be. Like, this is one of those experiences you have to have. I'm sure it's going to change. I'm sure it has already changed a lot of things, but I'm sure, like, later games from Naughty Dog and other publishers who want to make adventure games like this will draw a lot from this game. This game it's a spectacle. You definitely have to see it. But that's number 2. And number 1 was, of course, Bioshock Infinite. It actually had quite a bit of trouble when I was writing this list, deciding on 1 and 2. But in the end, like, Ken Levine won this. Yeah, okay, so Rational Games. Okay, so one thing you have to know is that Bioshock Infinite, or in my opinion at least, is like the true sequel to Bioshock. If you played Bioshock and you played Bioshock 2, Bioshock 2, it's not as good. I'm just going to say that. Like, you know, some people might disagree, but most people would agree it's not as good as 1. It wasn't as well received and everything. But it wasn't made by the original team that made Bioshock. It was made by 2K Marin. And so I never really saw it as the true successor to Bioshock 1. And this one is. This one is made by Rational. It's made by Ken's team. He led it. He wrote it. He did everything on it. And it's just such an amazing experience. I played through the whole thing on my channel. If y'all haven't seen that, you should probably check it out. That game, like, I would recommend you play it, actually. Like, if you have the choice between watching me play it and playing it, play it. Like, ignore my channel forever. Go play this game. The funny thing is, it's actually really, really similar to The Last of Us. Both of my top 2 games they're kind of the same game. They've got, like, this deeply flawed protagonist who's done some shit in the past, and he's sort of atoning for it. And then there's a strong female character who sort of comes of age over the story, and the protagonist wants to protect. And, you know, along the way, they find these side characters who are really similar. There's some villains and some, like, tragic people who you meet. And over the course of the story, there's a lot of stuff about morality and sort of these ruminations on mankind. And finally, at the end, there's, like, a morally ambiguous ending. And so it was really interesting seeing how the two were, like, almost the same game. But then, if you just put them side by side, Bioshock Infinite just blows The Last of Us out of the water in terms of just, like, the scale and its storytelling ability of the whole thing. And, I mean, I can't say it was the most fun I had that year. You know, if I was rating on, like, the most fun I had all year, it would have been, like, Saints Row or Spelunky or League of Legends or something. You know, it wasn't the game I played the most that year. That would probably be like League of Legends or Spelunky again. But it's I think it's the best game I played in 2013. I think it's the game that I'll remember the longest as a representation of the year. And just because it was such a well-made, good story, and it's got that Ken Levine twist. I mean, Ken Levine, some of his coworkers have described him as a novelist who happens to make video games. And I think, like, the second you step into this game, it's that creative genius just, like, hits you in the face. Like, every decoration is meaningful in some way. Every piece of music in the game is, like, a reference to something, or it sets the mood in a way that, like, even subconsciously you might know it. Like, there's like, Beach Boys songs, that there's a lot of anachronistic stuff that's just crazy. Every historical context is just well-researched, and it's there for a reason. Like every reference to history that you might know, or maybe there's this one battle that comes up a few times, and you might not know what the battle is, but when you Wikipedia the battle, you go, "Oh shit, that does tie in." It's just really, really well written novel that I happen to read through with my mouse and keyboard, and the game just looks amazing. It's one of the best looking games I've played on the PC, and I've played PC games for 2 more years after this, but it was just such a good looking game. And the environment is just so good. I mean, you walk into Rapture and everything is bright and open and cheery on the surface, but you can immediately tell, just like in Bioshock, that something's wrong. Like, there's this really foreboding sense that something's amiss, and you don't know what it is. And over the game you sort of find out, and then everything starts being on fire, and it's just such good looking and very purposefully made game. And I only managed to break it once, so, like, it performed pretty well. Like, if you've seen any of my videos, I break games all the time. But this game, I only managed to break one time at the end. If you'll watch my videos, you'll see it. And yeah, it was really good looking, really well made. Really good looking, really well made. I mean, I can't say enough about that. And I remember watching through the credits, because I was watching through the credits after my playthroughs. And you just see how much input, like, Ken Levine had. His name is in everything. He was such a big part of the creative process. He selected and arranged the music for the game and all of that stuff. And I just bring Ken Levine here, and I want to give him a big hug, because he's such a masterful storyteller and director of these things. I can't even describe it. And I mean, since we're talking about the music, because I'd go, like, the music. Oh my god, the music. The music is, like, inside the narrative in this way that I can't explain, because it would spoil the story. So just go watch the playthrough or play the game and you'll see what I mean. But there are these songs that show up several times. There's one song that's repeated throughout the whole game, and at the end it's like, bam, aha moment. It's like one of the biggest aha moments I've ever had. Like, oh my god, that song this whole time was leading up to this, and actually it was the whole game. What? You just have to see it yourself. And of course the voice acting is great again. Troy Baker is your lead, and he's Booker DeWitt. He's kind of a bad guy, but he's trying to redeem himself and do the right thing, and he loses, sort of has like a memory loss kind of thing going on. And then he's alongside Courtney Draper, who's great. He does an amazing job as Elizabeth. That character could not have been easy to pull off. And also they sing together, and it's beautiful, and you can see it in the credits, and it's great. I mean, the game itself, it's an action shooter, first-person shooter game in style. It's got a decent amount of enemies, different kinds of enemies that you have to kill in different ways. It's got a ton of different weapons, alternate universe weapons, and they're all sort of run on this combination of science and magic. It's a Bioshock game. Probably the most interesting thing they added was the skyline. So this concept of this metal rail that goes around the atmosphere, and you get on it and you can ride around and approach things from different angles, and it's kind of interesting. And I mean, the depth of the fighting it's not mind blowing. It's not spectacular, but I enjoyed it the whole time. I didn't really get bored of it, I don't think. There are some issues with it. People, when they talk about this game, always say the words ludonarrative dissonance. That's definitely a term that it's not unfounded for this game. There's something to be said about the fact that a lot of the stories told in these audio logs are just kind of haphazardly scattered around. The people just kind of, they said these important things and left them, and you pick them up, right? And there's also the fact that plasmids are kind of just like shoehorned in the game because it has Bioshock in the title, and those are all valid. There's certainly a lot of controversy in how the game presents itself, but I mean, in my opinion, like, you're talking about a game with things like magic and time travel. I didn't have a problem with that. It was really hard for me to try and reconcile that, like, to be realistic, because it's not really supposed to be realistic. It's like, it's a video game with magic and time travel. You value it in that context, and not, oh, well, it doesn't make sense that these people left stuff. Like, okay, yeah, it doesn't make sense. That's fine. It's a game. Whatever, right? At least it's reading it to me, and I don't have to sit there and read it myself. I mean, and, you know, another thing people said was that the combat was boring. And I disagree. I don't think it was boring, but it definitely didn't do anything mind-blowing, right? Like, Bioshock was fairly new in a lot of stuff it did in the combat, and this one sort of just like built on that, but didn't change the world. And I mean, I'd say the same thing I say about The Last of Us. Like, if you're playing Bioshock for a shooter, you're wrong. You messed up. You done goofed. Like, this is not about the shooting, right? Like, if I'm just doing the gameplay, I'd probably give it a solid B. You know, it's mildly fun, but it's not incredible. But, like, the visuals, easy A. Like, the audio, A+, right? And the story, like, A++++++++. Like, just an amazing experience. And so, like, you know, while The Last of Us was, like, a really, really incredible game, it was really thrilling, it was really well made, like, Bioshock Infinite, I think, was the most complete, the most enthralling, the most satisfying, and just the best put together game of 2013. It's the one that I'll remember the most. I played through it on my channel. You guys can see my first impressions of it through the whole thing. And I just, yeah, that game blew my mind. And I'm a big lover of plot twists, so that might have something to do with it. But yeah, Ken Levine just did such a good job making this game. I cannot gush about this game enough. Definitely go play it. I've seen it on sale for like $5 on Steam during the summer sales and stuff. So if you don't have it, pick it up when it's on sale. Definitely worth it. I haven't played through the DLC yet. I probably will soon. I'll talk more about that kind of stuff in a channel update, which will be here soon, I'm sure. Yeah, I'll do a vlog soon, sort of about channel and a life update. And I haven't really done any videos in like the last year and a half, and then I'll make sure to tell you guys why and sort of explain what's going on with me. But for this video, that's going to do it. It's been really long, but that was my top 10 list of 2013. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it's given you some insight on future purchase decisions. It was a good year for games. There was a lot of fun games that came out this year. I didn't barely play any games last year, 2014, and honestly, it wouldn't have been close. Like, Hearthstone's the best game of the year by a country mile. So there you go. That's my top game of 2014 is Hearthstone. Yeah, and that's gonna be it. So thank you guys for sticking around. It's 300 videos. It's a hell of a lot of videos, and it's gonna be a hell of a lot of editing. But this is Mandrew with my top 10 games 2013 in the middle of 2015, and I hope you liked it. So I will see you guys next time. Peace out, guys.